The night I became an accomplice to murder started the way most of my worst nights did, with Evan driving too fast down Poudre Canyon Highway and me trying not to say something I couldn't take back. You disappear for 2 days and then act confused when I ask where you were, I said, staring at the frosted windshield, my arms wrapped around myself for warmth. You're not a missing person, Evan. You have a girlfriend. Allegedly. I told you, he snapped, fingers tightening on the steering wheel. I was at Jake's. We were working on the truck. Not everything is some big conspiracy. Right, because nothing screams loyal boyfriend like turning your phone off and going off grid for 48 hours. He blew out a sharp breath, the headlights slicing through the dark canyon road. You never let anything go, Paige. You cling to every little thing like it's, I don't know, evidence. Maybe that's because you keep giving me evidence. The wind howled through the rock walls on either side of the highway, snowflakes drifting lazily across the beams of our headlights. The digital clock on the dash glowed 11:42 p.m. Somewhere behind us, Fort Collins was warm and lit up, but out here, it was just us, the road, and the river down below. You know what? I muttered, turning toward the window. I hope you marry your space. You love it more than you love me anyway. Oh my God, here we go, Evan said. I needed time to think. That doesn't mean I'm cheating. You think I've got, what, a secret second life in Denver? You barely manage the one in Fort Collins. I'm not giving you that much credit. And then it happened. A shadow darted out from the right side of the road, just at the edge of the headlight beam. There was a flash of movement, a silhouette, and before my brain could even process what I was seeing, Evan! Thud. The car lurched violently. Evan cursed and stomped the brakes, the tires skidding on a thin layer of slush. We came to a jerking stop, the seatbelt slicing across my chest. My heart hammered. What was that? Oh my God, what was that? Evan's face was pale, eyes wide. Probably a deer, he said, but his voice wobbled. It had to be a deer. Deer don't wear jackets, I whispered, because the shape I'd seen had looked wrong, upright, human. Evan swallowed hard. Stay in the car. Like hell I'm staying in the car. We both shoved our doors open. The cold hit me like a slap, Colorado winter air slicing through my coat. My boots crunched on the frosted gravel as I stepped around the front of the Charger, using my phone flashlight to cut through the darkness. He was lying there in the snow, about 10 feet ahead of the car. A man, definitely. Late 50s, maybe early 60s. Gray hair, dark coat, one of his legs bent at an angle it definitely shouldn't have been. Oh my God, I breathed, my throat closing. Oh my God. Evan moved faster, dropping to his knees next to the man and pressing 2 fingers to his neck. Snowflakes landed on the man's eyelashes, melting slowly. Come on, Evan muttered. Come on, man, please. I stood there, useless, my breath forming clouds in the air. The world felt too quiet. Even the river below sounded muffled. Evan looked up at me, his face hollow. He's not breathing. Call 911, I said, fumbling for my phone. We have to call 911. And say what? He barked. That I killed some guy on a dark canyon road with no witnesses and a record of speeding tickets on this highway? They'll say I was driving too fast. They'll say I was drunk. I'll go to prison, Paige. It was an accident. Accident or not, I'm done if they decide I'm at fault, he said. My license, my job, everything. You know how these things go. He patted down the man's coat with bare hands, pulling out a leather wallet. He flipped it open, the flashlight beam hitting the ID. Thomas Harrington, he read. 61. From Denver. He has a name, I whispered, as if that made him more real, more human, more impossible to shove into the oops category. Evan slid the ID back into the wallet and shoved it into the man's pocket. His jaw clenched as he looked at the edge of the road where the land dropped off sharply into the canyon. "There's a ravine right there," he said. "The river's down below. No one will see him from the road." My stomach twisted. "What are you saying?" He stood up and grabbed my shoulders. "Paige, listen to me. If we call the cops, they'll say I'm guilty of vehicular manslaughter. Even if I wasn't speeding, they'll twist something. I have tickets. I have a record. I'm screwed." "So what's your plan, Evan? Just pretend this never happened? Leave him here like roadkill?" "Help me move him," he said, eyes wild. "We drag him to the edge, push him down. The river and the brush will hide him. If they find him months from now, they'll think he fell hiking. That happens all the time out here." No, I'm not doing that." "If you walk away, they're going to know I didn't do this alone," he snapped. "Your phone location, the car, all of it. You were here too, Paige. You think they're just going to pat you on the head and say, 'Go home, sweetie'?" My gloved hands shook. My brain screamed at me to run, to call someone, to do anything else. But there was something suffocating in his voice, something that said my life could split in two right here and now. "I can't believe you're asking me to do this," I whispered. "I'm not asking," he said quietly. "I'm begging. Please, help me. I swear to God I will spend the rest of my life making this up to you." Maybe it was shock. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was the sick idea that I loved him too much to watch his life explode. Whatever it was, my feet moved before my conscience could catch up. Together, we grabbed the man under his arms and knees. My knit gloves scraped his coat. Evan's bare fingers dug into fabric and skin. "1," Evan said, breathless. "2, 3. We heaved. The body slid across the icy dirt, over the edge, and disappeared into the tangle of branches and rock below with a series of dull thuds. Everything inside me went quiet. Evan grabbed my face between his hands, his breath harsh in the cold. "Nothing happened tonight," he said. "Do you hear me? We hit a deer. It got away. That's it." "We hit a man," I whispered. "We killed a man." "Say it," he insisted, eyes burning. "Nothing happened tonight." "Nothing happened," I repeated numbly. "Nothing happened tonight." We got back into the car. Evan wiped the steering wheel with his sleeves. I stared at my gloves like they were someone else's hands. The rest of the drive back to Fort Collins was silent. The next morning, the guilt woke up before I did. It sat heavy on my chest, heavier than Evan's arm draped across me. He snored softly, like he hadn't shoved a human being off a cliff less than 12 hours ago. I slid out of bed quietly and walked to the bathroom. My reflection looked pale and hollow, dark circles framing my eyes. I turned my hands over, staring at the knit gloves lying on the counter, where I dropped them the night before. "I didn't touch him," I told the mirror. "Not with my real hands, just the gloves. It doesn't count." Even my excuses sounded pathetic. My phone buzzed on the sink. A text from Jess lit up the screen. "Coffee later? I need to vent about my life being a hot mess. Again." I typed back, "Sure, 10 at Harbinger," and tried not to imagine driving past a ravine on the way there. Harbinger coffee on College Avenue smelled like warmth and safety and people who hadn't accidentally hidden a body. Jess bounced into the shop in an oversized sweater and messy bun, cheeks pink from the cold. "There she is," she sang, wrapping me in a hug that I was too stiff to return fully. "You look tired, like I watched 3 true crime documentaries and stalked my ex's Instagram tired." "I just didn't sleep," I said, staring into my latte. She sat across from me, eyes narrowing. "Let me guess, you and Evan fought again? When do we not?" She groaned. "Girl, his emotional availability has a worse schedule than public transportation. You know I love you, but why are you still doing this?" "Because I love him," I said automatically, hating how small my voice sounded. "You love the idea of him," she countered. "Real Evan is like if red flags were a person with a gym membership." I flinched. If she knew what we'd done, she'd upgrade those red flags to sirens. "Anyway, what about you? You said you needed to vent. What did Chad do now?" Jess hesitated, then bit her lip, eyes darting down to her cup. "Yeah, about that. So, there's been developments. If you're pregnant, I swear." "I'm pregnant," she blurted, then clapped a hand over her mouth before laughing nervously. "Surprise?" My stomach dropped. "You're serious?" She nodded, chewing on her straw. "About 10 weeks. I found out last week." "Who's the father?" I asked, my voice sounding too careful, too controlled in my own ears. Jess shrugged, a weird little smirk tugging at her lips. "That's complicated." "How many options are we talking, Jess? Netflix menu complicated or tax forms complicated?" "Somewhere in between. Look, I hooked up with a couple guys over a few weekends. It was a chaotic era, okay? I'm not exactly sure who the dad is yet." Something in me bristled, like there was an inside joke I wasn't part of. "Are you okay with that?" "I mean, no, obviously this isn't the dream plan," she said, "but I'll figure it out. You know me, I always land on my feet." She swirled her drink with one finger, then glanced up at me. "You'll be there for me though, right? Like, godmother material?" "Yeah," I said, "of course." The words felt like a promise I didn't fully understand yet. The days blurred. I went to work at the insurance office in Old Town, smiled at coworkers, filed claims, answered emails, all while my brain replayed the sound of that thud over and over. Evan, somehow, seemed fine. If anything, more cheerful. He cracked jokes, turned the music up loud when we drove anywhere near the canyon, and shut down any attempt I made to bring up that night. "It was an accident," he said one evening as we sat on the sagging couch in his Fort Collins apartment, a Nuggets game playing in the background. "We didn't do anything wrong." "We hid a body, Evan." "We hid a dead body," he corrected sharply. "He was already gone. Do you want my life ruined for something I couldn't undo?" "You ruined it yourself the second you decided to play catch and release with someone's father." His jaw tightened. "You were there too." "Trust me," I said quietly. "I know." When Jess invited us to her first ultrasound appointment at Poudre Valley Hospital, I went because that's what best friends do. Evan went because Jess asked, and I tried not to notice how quickly he said yes. "You're gonna see your little alien blob," Jess said, looping her arm through mine as we walked through the automatic doors. "You better cry. I want full tears, Oscars level." "I'm emotionally constipated. You know this," I said, "but I'll try." Evan walked behind us, hands in his hoodie pockets, eyes flicking between me and Jess. I told myself I was imagining the tension. In the dark of the ultrasound room, we watched the grainy image flicker onto the screen. A fast little heartbeat filled the space. Jess grabbed my hand. "Oh my God, that's my baby. I made that." "You did," I whispered, my throat tight for so many reasons. "You really did." I glanced at Evan. He was staring at the screen, eyes locked, jaw clenched. Not like a guy watching a friend's ultrasound, like a guy watching his life shift. "You okay?" I asked later in the hallway. "Yeah, why wouldn't I be?" "Because you look like someone told you they're canceling the NFL season." "I'm fine, Paige." Something about all of it gnawed at me, like a puzzle I didn't have all the pieces for yet. Months passed. Jess's belly grew. Our group chat filled with baby name debates and nursery ideas. Evan started bringing over little things for Jess, a baby onesie he saw on sale, a stuffed bear, a pack of newborn diapers he claimed were extra from some donation thing at work. "You didn't even bring me cough drops when I had strep," I said one night as he came in with another bag. "I'm just being supportive," he said. "She doesn't really have anyone else." "She has me." "You're stressed enough already." The irony of him worrying about my stress was almost funny. The first real crack came the night Evan didn't come home at all. I stared at my phone at 1:13 a.m., seeing my last text, "You okay?" sit unanswered. His location sharing had mysteriously stopped working earlier that week. Convenient. When he finally walked in at 9 the next morning, I was sitting at his tiny kitchen table with a mug of cold coffee still in last night's leggings. "Fun night?" I asked. "I crashed at Jake's," he said automatically. "We were drinking and I didn't want to drive home drunk. You're always on me about that, so you're welcome." "Wow, you remembered something I said. That's growth." I watched him move around the kitchen. He smelled like body wash and winter air, not like alcohol. His hair was damp, like he'd showered somewhere else. There was a pink smudge on the collar of his hoodie. Lip gloss, not beer. "How's Jess?" I asked suddenly. "She's fine," he said. Too quickly. Too sharp. I didn't ask, "Are you sleeping with her, Evan?" I asked how she is. For a moment, something flickered in his eyes. Then he looked away. "She's stressed. The baby's due soon, you know." I swallowed. The puzzle pieces kept sliding closer, even if I wasn't ready to see the picture they were forming. The night Jess went into labor, my phone buzzed at 2:07 a.m. "Water broke. Holy shit. Hospital. Now. Help." I threw on jeans and a hoodie, barely pulling my hair into a messy ponytail before I sped through the quiet streets to Poudre Valley Hospital. Evan was already there when I arrived, pacing the waiting room like a nervous father-to-be instead of my unreliable boyfriend. "You beat me here," I said, breathless. "She called me too," he said, avoiding my eyes. "She was closer to my place. I drove her." My brain bookmarked that and moved on because Jess was in pain and nothing else felt important in that moment. Hours blurred into each other. I held Jess's hand through contractions, let her crush my fingers, wiped her forehead with a damp cloth. "You're doing amazing," I whispered as she screamed through another contraction. "You've got this." "Why do people do this more than once?" she cried. "This should be a one-and-done situation." "Because then you get the cute baby and forget about your body trying to rip itself in half," I said. She laughed, then cried again. At some point, I stepped out to get coffee and nearly collided with Jess's mother, Linda, in the hallway. Her face was tight, eyes red. "Hi, Mrs. Carter," I said. "She's doing okay. It's just slow." Linda brushed past me toward the nurse's station, voice sharp. "Have you seen him?" she demanded of the nurse. "That boy better be here." "Who?" the nurse asked gently. "The father," Linda snapped. "Evan, he ran off again, didn't he? Just like he did when Paige found out." "Mom!" Jess's voice cut through the hallway, weak but panicked from her room. "Shut up!" My brain stalled. Found out what? I took a step closer to the open door of Jess's room. Linda whirled on her daughter. "No, I'm not shutting up," she said, voice cracking. "Your best friend deserves to know that the boy she's been wasting her 20s on is the one who got you pregnant." Shattered, disbelieving. For a second, the buzzing lights in the hospital ceiling were too bright, the walls too close. "What?" I whispered. Jess turned her head slowly, eyes glassy with pain and something darker. "Paige, Tell me she's lying," I said, stepping into the room, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my teeth. "Tell me your mom is having some kind of mental breakdown and just grabbed a random name." Tears streamed down Jess's face. "I didn't want you to find out like this." "Oh, that's the problem? The timing?" I laughed, the sound sharp and ugly. "You slept with my boyfriend and you're worried about the reveal being messy?" "We were on a break," she croaked. "You and Evan were broken up. It just happened. And then I was pregnant, and I panicked." "You had 9 months to unpanic," I snapped. 9 months to tell me. 9 months of letting me hold your hand and buy you baby clothes while you were carrying his kid. "I thought I could handle it," she whispered. "I thought you two would be done and it wouldn't matter." "You thought I would be done with him?" I repeated slowly. "So you could have him?" "I didn't mean to fall for him," she cried. "Wow, that's funny," I said, because I meant not to throw up right now, and yet here we both are. Behind me, footsteps pounded in the hallway. Evan skidded to a stop at the door, hair messy, breathing hard. "Is she okay?" he asked, looking straight at Jess, not at me. "You tell me," I said, turning to him. "Dad." His eyes flicked between me, Jess, and Linda. "Paige, listen, I was going to tell you." "When? At the baby's first birthday?" I snapped. "Or were you going to wait until Mother's Day for maximum effect?" "You and I were in a bad place," he said. "We weren't technically together when it happened." "And then when we were together?" I asked. "How many times did you keep sleeping with her then?" He looked down. That was answer enough. I felt something inside me crack, something that had been patched and repatched 100 times over the years. This time, it didn't just crack, it shattered. "We're done," I said quietly. "For real this time. Not one of your breaks, not a fight. We are done." "Paige, do you have any idea what I've done for you?" I said, my voice shaking. "What I've kept quiet? I have literally helped you hide a dead body, and you couldn't even manage not to sleep with my best friend?" "Keep your voice down," he hissed. "Oh, I'm sorry," I said. "Wouldn't want anyone to hear the truth in a hospital. Pull it together, Evan. People are saving lives here." Jess reached for my hand weakly. "Paige, please don't leave me." "You left me months ago," I said, pulling my hand back. "You just forgot to move out of my life." I walked out before I could say anything more that I might regret, even though regret felt like a mountain I was already buried under. The days after that felt like static. Evan moved in with Jess and the baby, and Boulder County drama relocated itself to a 2-bedroom apartment on the other side of Fort Collins. I blocked both of them on everything, not because I didn't care, but because I cared too much and it was killing me. Mutual friends told me things anyway. "They fight nonstop," my coworker Lila said over drinks one Friday at the mayor of Old Town, like full volume screaming with the baby in the next room. "You say that like I'm surprised," I replied, tracing the rim of my glass. "He's already cheated on her," she went on. Some girl from his gym. Jess found the messages on his phone. He's nothing if not consistent. She asked about you, Leela added more gently. She said she misses you. She misses having someone clap for her while she detonates my life, I said. She made her choice. So did he. I moved little pieces of my life around after that. I got my own place, a small one-bedroom apartment near Old Town with creaky floors and a balcony that overlooked alleyway dumpsters and, if you craned your neck just right, a slice of the river. My therapist, Dr. Lane, told me I was experiencing trauma on top of betrayal, on top of complicated guilt. You've been carrying a secret that doesn't belong to you, she said, scribbling in her notebook. Then why does it feel locked in my bones? I asked. Because you love people who don't know how to love you back safely, she replied. That ends with you. It didn't feel like it was ending. It felt like it was simmering. Months later, on a Sunday afternoon at Old Firehouse Books, I met Noah. I was standing in the true crime section, which in hindsight felt like foreshadowing, holding a book about missing persons cases. That one has the worst ending, a voice beside me said. They never solve half of them. It sticks with you. I glanced over. Tall, dark hair, glasses he didn't need to look good, navy pea coat that actually fit his broad shoulders. He smelled like coffee and clean laundry. Do you work on commission? I asked. Because you're not selling it. He laughed. Sorry, I'm a nurse at Poudre Valley. I see enough unresolved stories. I get weird about the ones that stay open. I'm Paige, I said, holding out my hand before I could overthink it. Noah, he replied, his handshake warm and steady in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. Nice to meet you, True Crime Paige. Nice to meet you, hospital plot twist, I said. We ended up talking for 20 minutes about books, Fort Collins, where to get decent tacos, and how the downtown holiday lights made the whole city look like a snow globe. He asked for my number. I gave it to him without the usual knot in my stomach because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't looking at a man and seeing a ticking bomb. Dating Noah was like stepping into a warm room after being outside in February. He texted when he said he would. He showed up 5 minutes early instead of 15 minutes late. He listened, actually listened when I talked. You've had a rough run, he said once over dinner at Locality when I gave him a heavily edited version of my romantic history. That's not a reflection on your worth. It's a reflection on their capacity. And here I thought I just had a type, I said. We can work on that, he said. I vote we retire chaotic man-child as a category. Slowly, my nervous system started to believe that maybe love didn't have to feel like constantly waiting for a crash. The positive pregnancy test 3 months into dating Noah was not part of my slow and steady plan. I stared at the little stick in my bathroom, the word pregnant glowing back at me like a glitch in the system. No, I whispered. We were careful. I can't. The memories of Jess's swollen belly, of Evan pacing that hospital hallway, of the screaming, the betrayal, the baby, they all crashed into me at once. When I told Noah, I braced myself for flinching, defensiveness, excuses. He sat down on my couch, took my hand, and said, "Okay, we'll handle this. However you want to handle it. You're not alone." "You're not mad?" I asked. "I'm surprised," he admitted, "but not mad. This is big, but it's also life, and I like you a lot, Paige, so if this is where life is going, we'll deal with it together." Later that week, at my first prenatal appointment, the doctor asked about family medical history. I realized I barely knew mine, and I knew nothing about Noah's beyond my mom makes good casseroles. At his place that night, curled up under a blanket while some Netflix show played in the background, I turned to him. "Hey," I said, My doctor needs a family history for the baby. Anything I need to know? Genetic stuff, weird allergies, secret royal bloodlines? Noah chuckled. Sadly, no royal blood. My mom's side is pretty straightforward. My dad's side, we don't know as much. Why not? He hesitated, eyes drifting toward the dark window. My dad's missing, he said, finally. Has been for a little over a year now. My heart skipped, but I told myself it was just empathy. People go missing every day. It didn't mean... I'm sorry, I said. That's a lot. Do you know what happened? Noah shook his head. He lived in Denver. We weren't super close, but we talked. He liked hiking, driving up into the canyons, that kind of thing. One day, he just didn't come back. His car was found near Podre Canyon. No sign of him. The police think he fell or wandered off. We never found a body. The room tilted. My ears rang. Podre Canyon. Car near the road. No body. What was his name? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Thomas, Noah said. Thomas Harrington. The name hit me like a second impact. Paige? Noah's voice sounded far away. You okay? You look like you're about to pass out. I'm fine, I said quickly, forcing a smile that felt like it belonged on a mannequin. Just hormones. I stood up too fast earlier. I'm okay. You sure? He asked. I nodded, because the alternative was collapsing onto the floor and screaming the truth until my throat bled. That night, I lay awake listening to Noah breathe, one hand on my still flat stomach. Inside me was a new life. Inside my mind was a ravine, a hidden body, and a man with the same name as my boyfriend's missing father. I knew what I had to do before the sun even came up. The next day, I drove alone up Podre Canyon Highway. My hands gripped the wheels so tightly, my knuckles went white. Every curve of the road felt like a memory. I parked in the same gravel turnout where we'd stopped that night. The air was cold, the sky a dull winter gray. I killed the engine and sat there for a minute, listening to the ticking of the cooling car. You can still turn around, a small voice in my head said. No, I can't, I answered it. I climbed out and walked to the edge of the ravine. The drop was steep, but not impossible. Brush and rock and tangled branches layered downward toward where I remembered Thomas's body landing. I picked my way down slowly, grabbing onto roots and rocks, my boots slipping on patches of ice. My heart pounded, half from exertion, half from dread. About 20 feet down, I saw it. A scrap of dark fabric caught on a branch, fluttering slightly in the breeze. I moved closer. It was part of a coat, faded and torn, still clinging to a fragment of bone beneath it. I swallowed hard, forcing myself not to look away. There was more. A watch half buried in the dirt, the face cracked, the metal rusted but still faintly gold. I wiped away some dirt with the edge of my sleeve, my gloves left at home on purpose this time. The name engraved on the back? T. Harrington. Hi, Thomas, I whispered. I'm sorry. The weight of what I'd done, of what I'd helped hide, pressed down on me. But under it, another thought surfaced, clear and sharp. My fingerprints weren't here. My skin never touched him. Only my gloves had. Evan's bare hands had dragged him. Evan's DNA was on that coat, those bones, maybe even the watch. Evan liked to say we were in this together. For the first time, I realized we weren't. Not in the way that mattered. I climbed back up, dirt under my nails, thorns scratching my jeans. By the time I reached my car again, a plan had started to form, dark and precise. Step 1 was easy. I still had some of Evan's things in a box in my closet, things he never bothered to pick up, things I should have thrown out but hadn't. That night, I opened the box with new eyes. Inside, old t-shirts, a worn-out hoodie, and a small jewelry dish holding one of his favorite silver stud earrings and a thin cross chain he used to wear all the time. I picked up the earring and the chain, feeling their weight in my hand. "You took everything from me," I said, softly, to the empty room. "The least I can do is deliver you to the consequences." A week later, under cover of an early spring storm, I drove back up Poudre Canyon. This time, I wore different gloves, cheap latex ones from a box I'd bought at the drugstore, and parked farther down the road. I climbed down to where I'd found the watch, heart thudding. I dug a small hole near the partially exposed bones with a rock, my breath puffing out in short bursts. I dropped the earring and the cross chain into the dirt, then scuffed soil and decaying leaves over them, just enough to make them look like they'd been there a while, but not enough to completely hide them. "You always wanted to leave your mark," I muttered. "Here you go." I climbed back up, peeled off the gloves, and stuffed them into a trash bag I would later burn in a metal bin on my balcony. Then I waited. Waiting became its own kind of torture. I went to work, I went to prenatal appointments, I went on dates with Noah, whose kindness made all of this feel even heavier. "You're quiet lately," he said one night as we walked along the Poudre River Trail, his hand warm in mine. "Everything okay?" "Just tired," I said. "Growing a human is a lot." He smiled. "You're doing amazing. You know that, right?" "I don't know about that," I murmured, looking away. After a few months, when I felt like I would implode if something didn't happen, I made the call. I parked outside a grocery store in Fort Collins and dialed the non-emergency number for the Larimer County Sheriff's Office from a prepaid burner phone I'd bought for $20 in cash. "I was hiking near Poudre Canyon a while back," I said, pitching my voice slightly lower. "I think I saw something, a body, or bones. I didn't know what to do. I'm sorry I didn't call sooner." The dispatcher's tone shifted. "Can you describe the exact location?" I gave them the turnout, the approximate distance down, the landmark of a bent pine tree leaning over the edge. Enough to find Thomas, not enough to find me. When I hung up, my hands were trembling. The news broke 2 days later. Human remains discovered in Powder Canyon. Possible link to a missing Denver man, Thomas Harrington, who had disappeared over a year ago. Investigation underway. I watched the TV in Noah's living room as the story played, my heart pounding. "That's him," he said softly. "That's my dad. They found him." I placed a hand on his shoulder. "I'm so sorry." Tears filled his eyes, but he smiled through them. "It's weird. I thought knowing for sure would break me. It kind of helps. At least he didn't just vanish off the face of the earth." My own tears burned for a different reason. Investigators found the jewelry near the body. The news mentioned personal items, but didn't show them. They appealed for anyone who might recognize them to come forward. No one did. Evan didn't wear a cross chain anymore, not since the night of the accident. He had new jewelry now, new obnoxious accessories, new ways to decorate the same rotten core. Weeks turned into a month. Nothing. The story dropped off the front page. My planted evidence stayed planted, but useless. I needed something stronger, something irrefutable, something with pixels. The memory hit me one night while I was brushing my teeth. The dash cam. Evan had installed it the year before, after one of his speeding tickets. So if a cop pulls me over again, I'll have proof I wasn't doing anything wrong, he'd said, as if that was how any of that worked. The night after we hit Thomas, he'd ripped it off the windshield and yanked the cord out, tossing the camera into the glove compartment with shaking hands. If he hadn't thrown it away, and knowing Evan's laziness, he hadn't, it was somewhere, and I knew exactly where. Jess and Evan's apartment was on the other side of town, near the CSU campus. I drove there on a Tuesday afternoon when I knew Jess would be at her dental receptionist job and Evan would be working construction. The complex had a keypad on the front door with a code I'd watched Jess punch in a dozen times before everything exploded. She was a creature of habit. I tried her old birthday, the one she used for everything, because she'd once declared, "If I'm going to get hacked, my hacker is at least going to know when to send a gift." The lock beeped green. Inside, the hallway smelled like stale carpet and someone's dinner. Their door was on the second floor. I knocked once, just to be sure. Silence. I pulled a bobby pin from my hair, hands shaking, and worked at the cheap lock like every YouTube tutorial had taught me. It took longer than it did in the videos, but eventually, with a soft click, it opened. The place was a mess. Clothes on the floor, dishes piled in the sink, a half-eaten plate of something growing mold on the coffee table. A baby gate leaned against the wall, unused. My chest tightened when I saw the small toys scattered across the living room floor. A stuffed giraffe, a plastic rattle, evidence that there was an innocent life at the center of all this chaos. I didn't let myself linger. I went to the bedroom. Evan's dresser, his old duffel bag, the nightstand drawer filled with loose change, receipts, and an impressively depressing condom that expired 3 years ago. I checked under the bed, my fingers brushing against a cardboard shoebox shoved against the wall. I dragged it out and opened it. There it was, the dash cam, black, dusty, but intact. The cord was wrapped around it, the SD card still nestled in its slot. "You lazy bastard," I breathed. "Thank you." I slipped it into my bag, closed the box, and slid it back under the bed exactly where I'd found it. I wiped down anything I'd touched with the sleeve of my hoodie, then left as quietly as I'd come. At home, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open, hands hovering over the keys. I slid the SD card into the reader. A list of video files appeared, each labeled by date and time. My stomach flipped when I saw the one from the night of the accident. I clicked. The recording showed the dash of the Dodge Charger, the curve of Poudre Canyon Highway stretching ahead, the timestamp glowing in the corner. I watched us drive, listened to the muffled sound of our argument, cringing at my own voice. Then the shadow, the impact, the camera jolted, the view shaking violently. Evan's curses filled my kitchen as he slammed the brakes. The car stopped. The headlights pointed at empty road. You couldn't see the body from the dashcam's angle. But then the driver's side door opened. The camera stayed rolling. Evan's figure moved in front of the car, partially in the headlight beam. He bent down, out of frame, then reappeared, dragging something heavier than him toward the edge of the road. The camera caught just enough. His face, his hands gripping the body by the coat, the way he looked around like a trapped animal, the way he shoved. I wasn't in the frame, not once. The passenger door stayed closed. My shame was invisible. His guilt was not. I copied the file onto a new USB drive, then wiped the SD card with secure deletion software 3 times over. The dash cam went into a shoebox in the back of my closet. Insurance, I told myself, just in case. 2 days later, the anonymous package arrived at the Larimer County Sheriff's Office. A padded envelope with no return address dropped into a public mailbox miles away from my apartment. Inside, the USB drive and a printed note. Footage from Poudre Canyon Highway on the night Thomas Harrington disappeared. You're looking for the driver. Start here. I watched the news religiously after that, my heart hammering every time they mentioned the case. "Breaking news," the anchor said one evening as Noah and I were cleaning up after dinner. "An arrest has been made in the death of Denver man Thomas Harrington, whose remains were recently found in Poudre Canyon." I gripped the edge of the counter, plates forgotten in my hands. They showed Evan's mugshot. He looked smaller somehow, the bravado stripped away. The chyron read, "Fort Collins man arrested in connection with Harrington death." Noah stared at the screen, incredulous. That's the guy," he said slowly. "That's Jess's boyfriend, the one who used to come to the nurse's station all the time when she worked nights." "Yeah," I said, my voice tight. "That's him." "He just hit my dad and left him there?" Noah said, anger simmering beneath his words. "Like he was nothing?" I swallowed hard. "Looks like it." "Jess defended him," Noah added. "Said he was misunderstood. Guess the court can misunderstand him now." I didn't trust myself to answer. The story unfolded over the next weeks. Investigators had received anonymous dashcam footage, the reporter said. The jewelry found near the body was being tested for DNA. Evan maintained it was an accident, but the decision to move the body instead of calling for help weighed heavily in the charges. Jess was photographed leaving the courthouse once, hair a mess, eyes swollen, their toddler clinging to her hand. She looked less like the girl who used to laugh with me over iced coffee and more like a ghost of her own life. I didn't feel sorry for her, not exactly, but I didn't feel triumphant either, just tired. Noah and his family attended the hearings. I stayed home, claiming work or pregnancy exhaustion. The truth was, I couldn't sit in a room with Evan and not imagine him pointing, screaming, dragging me down with him. "The anonymous footage was a miracle," Noah's mom said one night over dinner, her eyes wet but grateful. "Whoever sent it, I hope they know they gave us closure we never thought we'd get." I smiled weakly and took a sip of water to hide the shaking of my hands. The trial ended with a conviction, not for murder, but for vehicular homicide and tampering with a deceased body. The judge's sentencing speech played on TV. Leaving Mr. Harrington in that ravine was a choice, the judge said. A choice that denied his family knowledge, denied them the ability to grieve properly. You compounded tragedy with cowardice. Evan was sentenced to 12 years. It wasn't enough for everything he'd stolen, but it was something. Jess, suddenly alone with a toddler and a pile of bills, started to unravel. I heard about it in fragments. Mutual friends, social media posts I wasn't supposed to see but did anyway through burner accounts and late-night doom scrolling. "She's drinking a lot," one friend said, "leaving the kid with her mom all the time. She posted this story about being abandoned by everyone with a crying selfie. It was a lot." "She abandoned everyone first," I said quietly. "She asked about you," the friend added. "Said if anyone would understand what it's like to love someone like that, it'd be you." "Understanding doesn't equal forgiveness," I replied. "She can keep both of those to herself." The toddler grew. A little boy with curly brown hair and big eyes. He looked like both of them, which felt cruel. He didn't ask to be born into this mess. When my son was born at Poudre Valley Hospital, a screaming, perfect little boy with dark hair like Noah's and my chin, I cried harder than I'd cried in years. Not just from pain or joy, but from relief. From the feeling that maybe, finally, something good could grow out of my life without being poisoned by it. "You did it," Noah whispered, kissing my forehead as I held our baby. "You're incredible." "He's incredible," I said. "We're just lucky." We named him Carter, Noah's middle name. New, clean, Hours. Months later, when Carter was a chubby-cheeked 6-month-old and slept in adorable, unreliable 3-hour shifts, I got a message from an unknown number. "Hey, it's Jess." My thumb hovered over the screen. I almost deleted it, almost threw my phone across the room. Instead, I opened it. "I signed over my parental rights," her message read. "To my mom, I can't do this. I'm not who a kid needs. They're looking for a permanent adoptive placement. I know I have no right to ask you anything ever again, but I also know you're the only person I've ever met who loved my kid's father enough to destroy herself for him and then survived it. If you and your new life wanted to adopt him, I wouldn't fight it. I'd be grateful. I'm sorry for everything." I read it 3 times. My heart pounded. The idea of raising Jess and Evan's child felt like inviting a ghost into our home. But the reality was, he was just a little boy, a victim of their decisions, not responsible for them. "What's wrong?" Noah asked, bouncing Carter gently in his arms. "Jess is giving up her son," I said slowly. "She asked if we'd consider adopting him." His eyes widened. "She asked you that?" "She said she knows she doesn't deserve anything from me," I said. "She's right, she doesn't. But he does." Noah looked down at our son, then back at me. "You want to do it, don't you?" "I want him to have a safe home," I said, my voice breaking. "I want him to grow up never wondering if he's lovable. I want him to have a dad who tucks him in at night instead of disappearing, a mom who doesn't choose chaos over him. And if we don't, someone else will. But I can't stop thinking about him." Noah stepped closer, Carter between us. "We can handle another accidental blessing," he said softly, "if you're sure this won't rip you open every day." "Everything I've done up to now has ripped me open," I said. "At least this time, maybe something good can live in the space." We met him a week later at Linda's house. The boy, Evan and Jess's son, was almost 3. He eyed us shyly from behind his grandmother's leg, clutching a worn, stuffed giraffe. "Hey, buddy," Noah said, crouching down to his level. "I'm Noah. This is Paige." I knelt beside him. "Hi," I said. "I like your giraffe." He studied me for a moment, then held the giraffe out slightly. "His name's Rocket," he said. "Rocket," I repeated. "That's a very cool name." Linda's eyes were red, but she smiled. "He's a good boy," she said. "He deserves more than what my daughter can give him right now." "We won't try to erase you," I said. "Or her. We'll be honest, age appropriate. But he'll know he was wanted every day." Linda nodded. "That's all I can ask." The adoption took time. Home visits, paperwork, interviews. But eventually, there were signatures, a judge's stamp, a new last name for a little boy who ran into my arms one afternoon and called me Mom like he'd been saving it. Standing in the Larimer County Courthouse, holding both of my sons, one by birth, one by choice, I thought about the girl I'd been the night of the accident, the girl who let fear make her complicit, the girl who believed love meant standing next to someone even when they were dragging a body over the edge. I wasn't that girl anymore. Years later, on a summer evening in Fort Collins, I sat on our small back porch watching the boys play. Carter chased bubbles across the grass, while his older brother, now 7, carefully showed him how to catch them without popping them. Noah grilled on a secondhand barbecue, humming along to a song on the radio. The air smelled like smoke and soap bubbles and cut grass, like a life that had somehow, against all odds, become ordinary and beautiful. I thought about Thomas Harrington, about how his son was here, laughing, loving, raising two little boys who'd never know the full extent of the darkness that had touched their lives. I thought about Jess, living a quieter life in another town, sending the occasional birthday card she knew we'd decide when to show. About Evan, somewhere in a prison yard, aging in a way he never imagined. I didn't feel vindictive anymore. He'd gotten what he'd earned. Jess had gotten what she'd chosen. And I had gotten something I never thought I'd have. A family that wasn't built on secrets and desperation, but on choice and care. Noah stepped onto the porch, handed me a plate with a burger, and kissed the top of my head. "You okay?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, smiling as Carter squealed with laughter and Rocket the giraffe flew through the air in the older boy's hand. "I'm really okay." There were things I would carry forever. A cold night in Poudre Canyon, a thud on the road, a ravine full of secrets. But there were other things now, too. Tiny hands, bedtime stories, two kids who would grow up knowing that love meant safety, not sacrifice. Some people bury secrets and hope they never resurface. I buried the past and watched something better grow in its place. And for the first time in my life, the only thing keeping me up at night was Carter waking up for water and his brother asking if rockets could really go to the moon, not the sound of a body hitting the ground in the dark. My name is Paige, and this was the last straw. If you enjoyed this story, please be sure to like, share, and subscribe.